I never imagined that a single afternoon could change the way I looked at my husband forever. For 11 years, I trusted Daniel with every part of my life. He wasn't just my husband, he was my best friend, my safe place, and the person I believed would never hurt me. We had built a beautiful life together. We owned a small house in a quiet neighborhood, shared countless memories, and talked about growing old side by side. At least, that's what I thought. The day everything started was completely ordinary. Daniel told me he would be working late, something that wasn't unusual. He kissed my forehead before leaving and smiled the same smile I had fallen in love with years ago. "Don't wait up for me," he said. I remember smiling back and telling him to drive safely. If I had known what was coming, I would have looked at him differently that morning. The hours passed quietly. I spent the evening cleaning the house and watching television. Around 9 o'clock, I realized Daniel had forgotten his tablet on the kitchen counter. I picked it up, planning to place it in his office. Then the screen lit up. A message appeared. At first, I wasn't even trying to read it. But the words were impossible to ignore. "I miss you already." My heart skipped. For a second, I convinced myself it had to be work-related. Maybe a family member. Maybe a friend. Then another message appeared. "Tonight was perfect." I stared at the screen. My hand suddenly felt cold. Something inside me whispered that I shouldn't look further. But another part of me, the part that sensed danger, needed answers. With trembling fingers, I opened the conversation. What I found shattered me. The messages weren't innocent. They were personal. Intimate. Filled with memories, inside jokes, and plans for future meetings. I felt like the air had been pulled from my lungs. The woman on the screen wasn't someone I knew. Her name meant nothing to me. But apparently, she meant everything to my husband. For months, maybe longer, they had been talking behind my back. I scrolled through message after message, feeling my heart break in slow motion. Every loving word Daniel had sent her felt like a knife. Every promise he made her sounded like a lie he had stolen from our marriage. And the worst part? Earlier that same day, he had told me he loved me. I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the evidence. Tears rolled down my face. But beneath the pain, something unexpected began to grow. A quiet determination. Because at that moment, I realized something important. The day I stopped trusting my husband wasn't the day I found those messages. It was the day I decided I would no longer ignore the truth. And what I discovered afterward was far worse than I could have imagined. For the next few weeks, I said nothing. I acted normal. I smiled when Daniel came home. I listened when he talked about work. I pretended everything was fine. Meanwhile, I watched. I paid attention to details I had ignored for years. Suddenly, I noticed how often he checked his phone. How quickly he turned the screen away from me. How many late meetings seemed to appear out of nowhere. The signs had always been there. I just hadn't wanted to see them. One evening, he told me he needed to travel for a business conference. The old version of me would have believed him immediately. The new version wasn't so trusting. After he left, I checked the hotel reservation he had shown me. The booking was real. But something felt wrong. So I called the hotel. My stomach dropped when the receptionist informed me that Daniel had checked in with a guest. A female guest. In that moment, every remaining piece of trust one had shattered completely. I cried harder than I ever had before. Not because I had discovered something new. But because the last tiny hope inside me finally died. The man I loved was living a double life. And he had become very good at it. That night, I sat alone and asked myself a difficult question. What do I do now? Part of me wanted to confront him immediately. Part of me wanted to disappear. But another part wanted the truth. All of it. No more lies. No more excuses. No more pretending. Over the following month, the truth revealed itself piece by piece. I learned that the relationship wasn't new. It had been going on for nearly 2 years. 2 years of lies. 2 years of secret meetings. 2 years of watching me trust him while he betrayed me behind closed doors. The realization was devastating. But strangely, it also made me stronger. Every painful discovery removed another illusion. The man I thought I knew no longer existed. And once I accepted that, I stopped seeing myself as a victim. I started planning my future. I met with a lawyer. I organized financial documents. I protected myself quietly. Daniel remained completely unaware. He continued living his double life, convinced he was smarter than everyone around him. One evening, he sat across from me at dinner and smiled. "You know you're the best thing that ever happened to me, right?" The words almost made me laugh. Not because they were funny. Because they were tragic. The man who said them didn't even realize how empty they sounded. For the first time, I looked at him and felt nothing. No trust. No security. No admiration. Just clarity. And clarity is powerful. Because once you see someone for who they truly are, they lose the ability to control your emotions. I wasn't planning revenge driven by anger. I was preparing for justice. And very soon, Daniel was going to learn that every lie eventually reaches its expiration date. The moment finally arrived 3 months later. Daniel believed he was coming home to another ordinary evening. Instead, he found divorce papers waiting on the dining room table. Beside them sat a neatly organized folder. Inside was everything. Messages. Hotel records. Financial documents. Evidence of every lie. I will never forget the expression on his face. For the first time in years, he looked genuinely shocked. "What is this?" he asked. I looked directly at him. "The truth." He tried denying it. Then explaining it. Then minimizing it. Then blaming circumstances. But facts don't disappear because someone feels uncomfortable. Eventually, he realized there was nowhere left to hide. His carefully constructed world had collapsed. And the person who exposed it wasn't a stranger. It was the woman he had underestimated for years. Me. The divorce process wasn't easy. Healing never happens overnight. But every step forward felt lighter than the last. Because I was finally living in reality instead of a lie. And reality, even when painful, is far healthier than deception. A year later, my life looked completely different. The sadness that once consumed me had faded. The anger had disappeared. Even the heartbreak had softened. In its place stood something much stronger. Peace. Real peace. The kind that comes from choosing yourself after years of choosing someone who didn't value your loyalty. As for Daniel, he eventually faced the consequences of his choices. Not because I destroyed his life. But because dishonesty eventually destroys itself. The lies became too heavy to carry. The secrets became impossible to hide. And the trust he had taken for granted could never be rebuilt. Looking back now, I realize the day I stopped trusting my husband wasn't the worst day of my life. It was the beginning of my freedom. Because trust should never require blindness. Love should never require self-deception. And loyalty should never be a one-sided sacrifice. Sometimes the most painful discoveries become the doorway to your strongest future. I lost the man I thought I had. But in the process, I found something far more valuable. I found myself. And that is a victory no betrayal can ever take away.